So hello everyone. So today the tutorial is a bit different. We're not gonna try to solve any homework or project or anything. Today is just a bit of tips and tricks again on React, Express, and maybe Heroku. Some of this come from students have been asking me for a couple of days, and some of this come from my personal project that I have been doing and stuff that I have found online. And I just want to show it, right? So you might want to use it, you might not want to use it. It's up to you. Just want to show you and tell you what's possible and what's impossible, right? Right. So this is the list of things that I'm going to cover today, and we're gonna go through all of them. Probably not gonna be in this order because some of them are connected to each other. So I'm gonna jump from one to another. I'm gonna show you why I did that, but we're gonna jump from one to another, and then I'm probably gonna do a time jump, a time thing in the description. So if you want, just like if you're watching this video on YouTube, just go to description looking for which part you like and then click on it. Right? All right. So this is the list of thing. I'm gonna quickly talk about what I want to showcase today. So the very general thing is the project. We're gonna talk a bit about a package.json setup. In addition to that, I want to talk about Nodemon and Node.dev. It's two different packages, and I want to just talk a bit about more of it, and then what does it do and stuff like that. Second is regarding to the tool that we're using, and throughout the whole course we've been using VSCode, and I want to talk a bit more about auto import and how to use it and why should you use it and stuff like that. Then the next bit is React. I want to talk about setState, or if you're using functional component, it's going to be useState. And I want to talk about the life cycle of it and how does it work, and a bunch of questions about what actually happening. I want to talk a bit more about them before to clear any confusion, right? And then because whenever we use React, at least in the course we also use it with React Rotterdam. So I also want to show you hooks of React Rotterdam makes available, so you can use it to do a bunch of things. Oh, sorry. Then we talk about create React app. Actually, that's wrong. Create React app. Right. So this is the tool that Facebook give us to create React, and we've been using it, right? So let's clearly talk about how does it work, right? Because we keep just like, yeah, I'm gonna use it, I'm gonna run it, but how does it work? What actually happening? And I want to talk a bit about proxy. We've been using it in a couple of days, or actually in a couple of projects, but I don't feel like we talk a lot about it. I personally don't know about proxy until last month or something, and I have been using it, and it's so good, right? So I want to talk about it. Then after the React, we talk about Express, right? So we've been using Passport to do authentication. So I want to talk about um, how to use Passport if you reload the server. The problem with Passport reloading server, I think a lot of you have already encountered. I want to talk about that and how to solve it. Then the next bit is what file does your server serve? It's a bit ambiguous, but it's gonna be something like you asking for file A. Does Express actually give you the file A, or what does it give you? I want to talk about that too. And one last thing that I'm missing here is I want to talk about compression. We learn about compression when we talk about optimization and all stuff like that, but we don't actually use them in production. And throughout my personal project, this is the bit that takes the most of my time. So I just want to give you guys some the tip of the iceberg about what does compression do and how you can use it. So after we're done with Express, I want to talk about database, right? And I want to just quickly talk about the importance of a database GUI or graphic user interface, and why I think you should use it. It's not a must, but I think that it should. And last thing is that we're gonna talk about deploy, and to be precise, it's gonna be deploy on Heroku. Right. I would say that every other platform will have different things to do when deploy, but I don't really want to talk about the step to deploy. I want to talk about what happened after you deploy. So the difference between running your application locally and running your application on Heroku. Right. So this is a list of everything that I want to talk through. Again, I'm gonna not going through this one by one from the top to the bottom. I'm gonna jump from one to another. I'm gonna tell you which part I'm gonna try to solve, and if you have anything that you want to ask me more, just put it in the chat, and I'm gonna if it's something big, then I'm gonna show it somewhere. I'm gonna put it somewhere in this this file. Right. All right. Cool. So first thing first, we're gonna talk about the project in general, right? So we're gonna talk about this bit. So before we do anything, I'm just gonna assuming that we're gonna do a React and Express application, right? So in order to do that, I'm gonna install and use create React app. And okay, and for anyone that to be, this is my first video. If this is the first video that you've been seeing, everything I've done here has no preparation. Okay, I have no idea what's gonna happen. So there might be something wrong, and I will come and fix it. And hopefully through the process of doing that, I can help you to get to have a chance to see if there's a problem, how can you debug, or how can you solve it, right? That also including Googling, of course. Right, so I'm gonna make a right, so I'm gonna make a React app. So I think it's create React app, and I think you put a name. So I'm gonna put React recap. Cool. All right. So now, while we're waiting for it to work, let's talk about how I think it's gonna take long, right? So let's slow it down and talk about actually while we're waiting for it, let's talk about Nodemon and Nodedev, right? We're talking about this. All right. So we've been learning about Nodemon, correct? Actually, I'm gonna open this because I have no idea what's gonna be shown if I open the other one. Alright, so let's talk about Nodemon. So Nodemon, how does it work? We all learn about this, right? We all use this. And how does it work? You use Nodemon and then you put an app, correct? And the way it works is that it's gonna blah 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 blah. Where's this the watch? Actually, it doesn't do that. Where does it say what will do? Otherwise, no script given. Yes, if you have package. Okay. Alright, so this is how it, like, there's a lot of things, right? But this is the bit where it tells you exactly what does it do. So Nodemon basically watch all the file that you have in a directory, right? You can declare what file you need to load to watch, and then what it does is that it run a file again. So it restart itself, so it run a file again. You can put something in addition to, like, you can put what command that you want it to run. You can tell it what file that you want it to watch, right? So you can done a lot of things. Cool. So let's go to another one and have a look at Nodedev. So what's Nodedev? Nodedev is another package that does exactly the same thing. Okay, to be honest, I haven't used Nodedev. I use another version of Nodedev called TS Nodedev, but ignore all of that. Nodep is, I would say Nodep is better than Nodemon, and hear me out. Alright, so Nodep is a development tool, right? And what does it mean is that it restarts itself if a file is modified, correct? So why does I say that, what did I say that this is better? Remember the similarity between Nodemon and Nodep is that both of them restart itself if the file is changed. However, Nodep doesn't scan, as I say here, it doesn't scan the file system for the file that being changed. Instead, it go into the node and then it watch the file that has been required, and then if those file has been changed, it rerun itself, right? It rerun again. So first of all, it know exactly what file that you need to load. Meaning what? Meaning if you make a change to a CSS somewhere else, your application doesn't have to reload again because you are dealing with the server. The server doesn't need to know the changes in the CSS file, right? And the second thing that I have learned is that the node dev also doesn't compile everything again. What does it mean by that? It means that whenever your application got run, right, the node or the node application need to process all your file, and then it give out an application that can run. Nodemon, what it does is that because it's restart the process, it means that all the file need to be combined and it needs to be read again, like completely new. While Nodep, what it does is that it only changes the file that is being modified. Meaning, if you have your application with 10 different files and you change one file, while the Nodemon needs to read again 10 files, Nodep only read one file and then update that. And that's the reason why I'm saying Nodep is actually a better way, because it saves the memory, it saves the time. And you're probably not going to see this if you're dealing with your own project, because your own project is too small to actually see the differences. But my project, I have around 40 different files or something like that. And whenever I use Nodemon to load it, it takes around 10 seconds to combine them all. Note that takes around 100 milliseconds or something, so 100 times better. It's because I changed one thing in one file that is so small that Nodep just like, okay, I read that file, I update it, and that's it, right? So the end result, both of them doing the same thing. However, the time and the effort and probably the memory saying, I'm assuming that your computer is good enough, but if your computer is bad, maybe it has less RAM or something, then I would say Nodep is going to be a better thing than Nodemon. Alright. So, has it done yet? Cool. Okay. I think I have to... I'm using the wrong one. Explorer. I think the reason that I'm deleting what that is because I installed Yarn in my public, like my laptop. Sorry, not laptop, the PC, and then it see that I have Yarn, so it installed Yarn. So I'm gonna have to do this again. Give me a sec. I forget how I did that before. Oh, this is how it works. Oh, does it not? Deleting it? Oh, it's doing it. Oh, sorry. Ignore me. Wow, how many files in this one? Wow. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so now we have to wait for that again. Um, Probably while we're waiting for it, I'm gonna talk about yarn and npm. I don't know. You have never heard about that, but why not talking about that? Alright, so what's yarn and what's npm? We all know npm, right? Npm is Node Package Manager, right? We know about it. Yarn is something does exactly the same thing. So this is yarn. Yarn is a package manager, and the cool thing is that you can use yarn to install package from npm too. So this is something that built on top of npm, and their claim is that they actually, sorry, before we do anything, I'm just gonna hit X here so I know that it's done. And alright, let's come back to yarn. And their claim when they start building this is because they're trying to solve some problem that npm has at that time. For example, it's like, and when npm install multiple package, it being slow. When npm trying to update something, it's being slow. So yarn is built in order to solve that. However, from time to time, npm update itself and then it become better. So honestly, I don't understand why yarn is still here. But anyway, yarn is built by Facebook, and it's still being supported by Facebook. That's why you can see that when I do create a React app and they see that I use yarn, they immediately like, yes, that's my default, go and use yarn. Right? But I would say both of them are exactly the same thing. If you have package.json and package.log.json.log, I think yarn has yarn.json and yarn.log or something similar. But they both the same thing. They're just different package manager. Alright, cool. Now we have npm here. Alright. So package.json setup. Alright, let's start this. Alright. Restart app. Alright. So this is a React app. A bit different from what I thought. But we can make this similar in a way. Alright, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go to Monash bootcamp content, and I'm gonna grab that example to showcase my reason. I mean, we can use this, but it's not really fitting what I'm trying to solve. Give me a sec. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Alright. Alright, we're gonna use this one so I can showcase my reason behind something. But so this is the code that been given now to do the homework, right? Sorry, not the homework, like the merge stack. And you can easily see that there's two package.json in here. So one of them, this come from create React app. And the reason why I know is because if you go back and you look at this one, the package.json, kind of similar, right? So the whole script, dependency, Right, I am going to, no, it doesn't work. There you go. Right, looks similar. Kind of similar enough. Right, so this is the new one. Okay, and the other package is come from probably manually build them yourself, because this is everything that, like, this is the server, right? The whole thing is the server. To run the server, Nodemon ignore the server, run client. Sorry, this is run client. Run client is run this, and concurrently Nodemon. So this is run the server, and that is run the client. Right. So all this is to run the server. Right. So now let's talk about what is happening here. Right, so in this one, we see that there's two package.json. One used for front end, one used for back end. Or one used for React, one used for Express. And I would say that I don't like this approach. The reason being is that I've been helping 2 or 3 different students that are having the problem because they install the package in the wrong places. And what do I mean by that? So, for example, I have one student who installed Material UI, and then they install it on the backend, and then they go into the front end and they start using it, and it was working for a weird reason. I have no idea why, but it was working. Then, at some point, it breaks, and then they say that, hey, I don't know what React is, or to be precise, React DOM is. Because the reason is it's installed in this package.json, so the dependency is right here, and because in here it has no React or React DOM, right? And so it's I say, hey, I don't know what React DOM is, and in my mind I was doing something very stupid. I told them that, hey, there's 2 ways for going with it. Either you remove it from this dependency and then move it inside where it's supposed to be and then install it here, or you just install React in here, right? Just install it here. And then they did the easy way. They install React in the backend, and then it worked. And after a while it broke again, and then the reason it broke is because it's detecting many instances of React. It's because we install React in this package and also in this package. So 2 packages, one front end and one back end. And then something internally in Node just confused itself about which React is using. Alright, so what we did is we have to remove all the Material UI, the React on the back end. We move it into the package.json and then install it here. Right, so that's the whole story. What can be done with it is that if you have one package.json throughout your whole project, that will never happen. That will never ever happen, because you have one package.json, you have one node module. That will never happen at all. And why do I say one package.json? The reason is package.json is supposed to be a manifest that tell either npm or other developer what is this project about. It has name. You can see that it has name, right? Has name, has version, has description, had what files to start, had what script to run, who are you, what license is this about, what package that it needs depending on. In this one, it even have what browser that is supposed to support. So a package.json is like your identity card. You cannot live without it, right? And so a project doesn't make sense if a project has 2 identity cards. It doesn't say. So is this project a MERN, or is this, sorry, it's still MERN. So is that the version 1.0 or is that the version 0.1? Right? I have seen multiple projects that I've been through. They completely splitting the front end and back end into 2 different projects, like 2 different repo. I've been in some of them, And that's okay, because now you're talking about two different projects, and they're using two different variables, and they're using two different package.json. That makes sense because you're talking about two projects. But one project, I would say, never go for double package.json. It's confusing. It doesn't make any sense. And you're going to face some problem. Hopefully you don't face it, but I would say you may face the problem that I've been talking, like through the story that I talked before, right? It's so confusing. It took me like an hour or something to figure out that, hey, we are doing wrongly. We install multiple instance of React, right? It doesn't make sense, and it shouldn't doing that. All right. So that will conclude my reason for package.json. Cool. All right. Now let's quickly talk about VSCode and auto import. So I'm gonna use this one. Probably gonna do the merge stack. The client later on. Sorry, the server later on. All right. So this one, what I want to quickly show you is that, assuming that this is your project, right? Then you add in component. In component, you add I don't know, random div. I say that, and in random div you add a file called index.js, and this one React Sport. Random div turn. This is random. Right, alright, so this is a div like this. Right, this is nothing big, it's supposed to be simple. And now you want to go in here, and actually before we go in here, let me just quickly run this and make sure that it's running. Sorry, npm start. Starting development server. Alright, I'm gonna show it here. Okay, copy link. Alright, see, so this is working fine, right? Now, I want to include this random div into this app. No joke, I've seen a lot of people, what they're doing is they start from here, they do import random div from component random div and index, right? So this is enough. A lot of people just like typing this one to one, right? A lot of them doing that. To show that it's actually working, I'm just gonna add random div in here. Right, this is random. This is so cool. This is actually rotating. This is CSS. You don't know it, this is CSS. Right. Cool. Alright, so now what's wrong with this? There's nothing wrong with this, right? So just to be clear at first, there's nothing wrong with that. Start from here, doing it here. Now the problem that I see with this is that what happens if your directory become too complicated, right? And when I say complicated, I mean going out one level, going in another level, go to another folder, stuff like that. It's become too complicated. Then what you can do is that you don't have to think about all of that. You let VSCode help you with that, and VSCode does doing that. So if you open here and I say random div, you see that it has here, like it's autocomplete itself, and then you're gonna see the auto import from something here. If you hit enter, it's import for you exactly where it's supposed to be. right? If your machine is slow, or sometime this happen, I have no idea why, but sometimes it happen that you can have this, like it will still show you what it's supposed to be, but there's no text on here, right? And if you hit on it, it's still doing that, but there's no line like this on here. And as you know, this will not work because it doesn't know what random diff is. And my best guess for this case is that it's just being slow, like there's no RAM workable to it know what you want to do, but it's just haven't known where it is yet. So it's just showing you what it wants you to put in, it's just not sure where to put it, right? So if there's a case like that, just like type it and then wait for a while. I would say 1 or 2 seconds at most, and then it should show up, right? So that's the thing that I want to show, right? So have VS Code to do the autocomplete for you, to also import it. You don't have to do it yourself, right? And why we are so this is not me. Save it. That is right. Yeah, there you go. All right. So while we're here, the other thing I want to talk about is this is not VS Code. I would say this is JavaScript. Is export const versus export default. This is more of the technique to use. So when I say export const and export default, what does it mean? So you see this is a file, and you can see that I do an export default in here. Right, and when I do export default in here, you can see that I import it here. Right, so now what happens if I do another diff, and this one, everything is exactly the same, but instead of here, I do a const. This is arrow function, right? This is another, and if I include it here, yeah, this is the thing I said to you. So sometimes it does that. There you go. And if you refresh it now, you can see that there's 2 of them. Right, and you can now see that this is 2 different ways to import, and the one that we use export const have the bracket around it, while the one we use export default have no bracket. So what's the main difference between export default and export const? To be honest, there is no differences. It's about preference. Some of the tools that you use in React, like recently I used React.lazy. It only works with export default, but the number of tools that limit you to that is very small. So that's not the main differences. I would say the main differences between export const and export default is that with export const, you can export multiple times in the same file. Meaning I can do in here another export const, and in this one, if I what do I call it, 2, it can export multiple and then import multiple times, but you cannot export default multiple times. Export default is one and only. You can combine export default and export const. You can do that. So I can do export default in here, another div 3. Sorry, it doesn't work this way. Function. You can combine them together and then use them in here together. That's totally fine. It's totally fine, right? So you can combine them, but just remember that you can export default once in a file, but you can export const multiple times if you need to. Yeah, there you go. So that's working. All right. So before we move on from this, I want to talk about the shorthand of arrow function, return ish. So quickly, this is really quick. So we've been using arrow function, right? And arrow function, normally you do something like this. So if I say arrow function, I'm gonna do name. Actually, name is fine, and then you do here name plus name, something like this, right? So if I do a, so because a is the function, I put in 3. It's gonna return me 3, right? Makes sense. However, there is a shorthand for writing a function this simple, and that is you can write something like this. And if I use b3, as you can see, it's the same thing. Or to be precise, normally I would prefer going with a bracket like this, just to show you that it's still working. There you go. All right. So what is the shorthand, like this kind of shorthand does? So this kind of shorthand is that the way I can describe it is that if your function doesn't have any other instruction to do any other thing, that it's just return, it's a symbol return function, symbol return expression, then you can remove the curly bracket and the word return, and then you can just shorthand it rightly like this, right? And the reason why I show something like this is because you can make this into React syntax. So something like this. So you see how I have, assuming this is your component, see how I have something like this, right? What I can do is that I can remove this, and again I normally wrap them around with a round bracket, and I can remove this, and this is a valid function. And if I save it, you can see that they're still running normally. All right, so this is a shorthand way. Another way to use this is that I normally use this in a map function. So if I have a number array 1, 2, 3, right, and I'm gonna update this one. And in this one, I do a number array dot map, and in here I do number. So normally you have to do something like this, right? Return, what's happening? Unexpected token. Oh yeah, it doesn't like that. Have to have something like this. Return def, and then you put number in here. Right, because this is an array, so I'm gonna have to put key in it. Right, cool. But with the new way, what you can do is, see how this is a normal return. Remove this, remove this, remove the word return, and now you can see that they're doing exactly the same thing. And because there's no return keyword, it seemed to me only, maybe you guys feel differently, it looked better, like it looked cleaner, and you can see exactly what DOM element that is having. And imagine that this is another, I don't know, if you have like another sorry, a random div or something like that, this is gonna be looking like cleaner because you don't have the word return and then a bunch of things in here. Yeah. Alright. Right, so we're done on that. Now let's talk about setState. Alright, so before we talk about setState, we need to talk about life cycle of React. And React component. There is a link this way. So okay, I'm gonna turn this off. Alright. So this is React component lifecycle. The functional is working on the same idea, but because they use hook, a lot of them you don't see it here, but they are working on the same mechanism. So when you start when your component got mounted, right, or it's showing on the screen, it goes through the constructor, then it starts rendering. After it finished rendering, it runs a function called component did mount, right? And then anything afterwards gonna run. If you have run setState or something, then it run render again, and then it run component did update. Make sense? Right. So the hook that we're talking about is the one. The hook that I want to talk about is the hook that we use for state or useState in React's functional component. So let's quickly write a component and then have a talk about it, right? So random button. Pum, 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 pum. Okay, so in here, const number of click and set number of click. Equal to react.useState, and the beginning is 0. So this is normal, right? Then we have a div to show number of click, and we have a button to say click me. And we have a function to handle button click that we're gonna write later on. This one for now, just do I am click, and in the button we do an on click equal to and the button click, right? So simple. Now actually, before we do any of that, just quickly, I'm gonna save it again. Tell me what you think, right? Have a look at all my screen. Just tell me what you think. I just hit save, right? And you can easily see that this doesn't change, right? So if I go into the app and I'm gonna remove all of this. I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna import the random button, and if I hit save now, you can quickly see that they are compiled again, right? So now they're compiling. If I'm removing this, sorry, actually, if I go in random button, I say it's compiling. If I am not having this, it's not compiling, right? So React, I would assume React script doing something like the node dev that I talked at the beginning. I'm not sure. I haven't dived too deep into React script to understand what they're actually doing, but something similar. All right, let's put that aside. All right, so let's go back to the script and see. All right, so this is click. Cool. Now, in this one, what it's gonna do is it's gonna set the number of click and do number of click is 1. Cool. If I click this, it show up. But this is simple, right? You guys already know all of this. So what am I trying to solve here? What I'm trying to show you is what happened if I do console.log number of click in here. So tell me, what do you think the number is? So if I go here, now I click this, the number, will it be 1 or will it be 0? So I'm gonna try. This is more of a rhetorical question. You don't really need to answer that. Like, just if you're sitting with someone next to you, just like turn to them and say what the answer is. All right. So if I click now, it's showing 0. This is 1, but this is showing 0. If I click again, have a look at this. If I click again, this is showing 1, but this is showing 2. Right? If I click this again, this is showing 3, and this is showing 2. Right? You get the sense of it. So now let's add one more. So I'm gonna have it in here. I'm gonna do inside callback function, and out here I'm gonna do before render function, and I put number of click. Right, similar. Right, nothing else. So in here we see there's 2 before render. That's fine. Now if I hit this, inside callback function is 0, before render function is 1. Inside callback is 1, before render is 2. Inside is 2, before is 3. So before the render function is giving the correct number, which matching the number that is shown in here. However, inside the callback function is giving the previous number. Right? And why is that? The reason for it is that the setState in React is not synchronous. It's actually asynchronous, but it's not promised asynchronous like we all know. This is React way of asynchronous themselves. So whenever you say something like setState, or in this case set number of click, what React does is that it say, oh, you want to update this? Cool. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a queue and I'm gonna pop this in there. And at the end of the life cycle, I'm gonna show you exactly where. I'm gonna run it all at once in the order that you set it up. But it will not happen immediately. And that's the reason why you see that this number of click doesn't change. It only changes before the render. So it does work, it's just not work immediately. And like I said before, right? So this is the callback, and this is called setState, and this is the render. So let's go back to the life cycle. This is setState. This is render. Right? So what happened in this one is that in the render, it doesn't show that. In the render, right? When you call an event handler, or in this case it's onClick, and you run a setState, all of the setState gonna be here, right? So it's gonna all of them, like when you do setState, the setState gonna be here, but this is gonna go down up to here, and when it finishes around, I would say around this point, it needs to complete all of the event handler before it go back and start doing the setState. So the key point to understand in here is that if you are calling an event handler, the event handler needs to be completed, all of it. Like if you have multiple handler, all of them will need to be completed before the setState actually work. So before the setState actually run, all of the event handler has to be complete. So that's the reason why if you're immediately checking for the number or whatever the new state that you're showing, it will not be there, because again it will be delayed until it finish all the event handler. Right. So the question now is, so if it's delayed, how can I use the updated data? And it's very simple. The way that you can use the updated data is you create itself. So you can do a new number here, and you can make this equal that. So in other case, you update however you want it to be. In this case, I only want to +1 on it, and I can put the new number in there, and then I can start using it. Right. So if you have an object or something and you want to update themselves, you can create a new object, and then you can set state using that new object, and then you can have that new object to do whatever you want. So let's save this and have a look again. And now you can see that inside and before the render are actually showing the same number. Right. Just a quick thing to talk about React on the setState is that React meant to be using all the immutable object or immutable thing, right? Immutable, not mutable. What I meant by that is that if you have an object A, it's an object. So if I have in here name equals 3, and you do B equal A, and you do B dot name equal hello, something like that, right? You can see that A got changed and also B got changed. And if you do A equal B, it's giving you true. And what does A triple equal B mean when you compare the object? Is that instead of it comparing the type and everything, what it compare is compare the address. So when you have an object or an array and you assign that into something else, instead of copying it over, what actually is saying is that both of the variable is now pointing to the same thing. So now both B and A pointing to the same object, and that's the reason why when you update B, it also update A, because they are the same object. So when you're comparing both of them, because they are the same object, they are the same. So this is what we call mutable, because you are changing the object. Immutable meaning that from one object you create a new object. And what I meant by that is that you now do saying var c, and normally we use spread operator to make the new object. There's many ways to doing it. It's just with ES coming along, spread is easier. So I spread B, right? So whatever other property they have in there, I have it in here. Then I change the name into the word. Actually, just word would be fine. And now you can see that C changed, but B doesn't. So C now is a different object from B. And to be correct, to make sure of that, we can easily do B triple equals C, and we can see that it's false. Because when they're comparing the object, they're comparing the address. If you use triple equal, and they can see that they are different objects. And just to make sure that they are comparing the object and they're not comparing, they're comparing the address and they're not really comparing the object, I'm gonna make a quick example of if I do. So if you see B that is named hello, right? I'm gonna make a D with the same thing, right? But we both know that this is different object, and I'm gonna do B triple equal D, and you can easily see that it's false because it's the different object. It doesn't really comparing the property of the object, it's comparing the address of the object, and because they are different object, it's going back to false. So immutable is something that React work on top of it. You can do mutable it's fine, you can do it, but expect React to behave weirdly, like really weird, when you do something like that. Alright, so I talk about setState. Cool. Now let's quickly talk about React Router DOM. Before I do that, I'm gonna install it. npm React Router DOM. And I'm gonna move this into a component called home. The React thing is the only thing I cannot get it to auto import. I have no idea how. I just have to live with writing it whenever I start a new file. And what else do I need? So I don't need that. I need this. Okay. Image PA. There you go. All right. So we have this. We have the app, and in here we have access to React Router DOM. Or to be precise, normally if you use routing, you use switch, right? I think this one. And I think we use route. Is that router or route? I thought we used route. Switch. Yeah, route, not router. Where's my route? What? So how do you use it? So path. I'm gonna go with path dot that. Render. Route. Component. And we're gonna put home in here. Right, and I don't know, I'm gonna make another one. About us. I'm too lazy to change anything, so I like the logo, so I'm gonna put it there. And I'm gonna change this to about us. Please don't judge my laziness, please. About us. Alright, so this is gone. Oh wait, I think I removed the logo. I need the logo. Alright. And I'm gonna make another route to do about us. Right. Good. Failed to compile. Cannot resolve in home. Does it work now? Nope. In home. Oh wait, I think the link is wrong, right? Logo. I think it's this. Oh, is it not? Oh, another level. Right. Cool. Let's go back. Users will. Okay. I need a router. Cannot read. What is this? Huh, okay. Let's have a look at this again. Basic. Import. I have a router. And I have a switch. Then I have a route. That's look fine. Did I do something wrong with it? A router, I have a switch, I have a route. Cannot read property location of undefined. What location? This is a bit of a hack. We have to solicit notification. Cool. That's in the router itself. Okay. Is that because? Oh wait, no. That's required. Nope. Okay. Doesn't like it to work. The value is undefined. Okay, what did I miss? Browser router. Oh, did I use the wrong thing? Voila. Okay, cool. There you go. About us. I think I rendered the wrong thing. Oh yeah. About us. There you go. Fail to do that again. Okay, where's about us? There you go. So this is about us. And ta-da! Okay. So this is a page and this is about us. Okay, so two different pages. Cool. Alright. So blah 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 blah. Okay, what do I want to show you? So the first thing is how do we go from one page to another? Yeah, alright. So there are many ways to do that, right? And one way is that in the home, in a component, you use another component called link, and then I believe you do to, and you tell it where to go, right? And what is happening is oh wait, I'm supposed to give it a name or something. About us. And that's the link, and you click on it, it goes to another page. Right? Normal. However, what's happening is that there will be cases that you want to do more than that. So imagine that I don't have this. Right? And what I want to do is that I have this random button. It's so weird. But I would say that whenever the number becomes 5, push me to About Us page. Again, this is totally my random application. You should never build the application based on whatever I said, okay? This is so wrong, even in UI and UX. But because we want to do that, so why not? So the goal of this is, if new number is equal to 5, push us to what page is it? About Us page. Right. So how to do this? So in order to do this, what I'm going to show you is that React Router DOM has given us a tool, to be precise, it's a hook called useHistory. Right, and the way we use it is that I'm going to create a new variable called history, and I will use the useHistory. It's come from React Rotterdam. And what I can do with this is that I'm gonna move this down here. Is that if new number is equal to 5, we can call the history. So this history is type history, and we can keep push, and we can go to the page that we want. Alright, before I tell you what the hell I just did, let's see whether it worked, right? So we go back to the page. I'm just gonna refresh to make sure that it works. I click 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we jump to about us page. Right, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we jump to about us page. Alright, so the link that we used before is come from both the link and the history come from React Rotterdam, right? So the link is a component way to go to another page. But if you want to do it programmatically, meaning that you do it in an event handler or something, they provide you with a hook called useHistory that you can call a function called push to, like, again, to do the similar thing, to go to another page. And there's a lot of function in here. I'm gonna show you one quick one. It's called I think go back or something. The about space, and because I'm lazy, I'm just gonna do it in here. Go back. Actually, I cannot be lazy. I need to do the useHistory. So similar thing, useHistory, right? And handle button click. I can do history.go back, or let's go forward. That's a bunch of them. I'm not using it a lot, but like, I mean, other function besides from push, but that's a lot for you to discover. So if I do something like this, what happened is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can click here, and it does exactly the similar thing with you going back from here. Right? So go back. See how that works. Go back. Right. So that is the routes that this is one of the hooks that React Rotterdam gave you to use in order to do something cool like that. The other one that I want to show you quickly is the thing that we call useParams. So that's another hook, and the way it works is something like this. So I'm gonna, because I'm just gonna quickly showcase this, I'm gonna make the same route, but I have something in here like ID or something. Right. A lot of the time it's kind of hard, at least for me, to get this number out. But with React Rotterdam, one way that you can do is that you can use param. You can call a function called useParam. This is also come from React Rotterdam. And if you console log it, you're gonna see that is an object that has the ID, sorry, the key as whatever you declare in here, and the value, which is whatever is matching it. So that useParam thing give you this, which is a very easy way to access the data in a URL, right? And it's gonna be much more convenient if, say, you have a bunch of thing in here like this, right? If you have multiple, the more param you're using, the better the whole function is. So just two things that I find very useful whenever I do I use React Ratterdam. Alright, so we talk about React. Now let's talk about how does React work, or like, sorry, not how does React work. How does create React app work? Like, alright. So I told to you before that I haven't dived very deep into create React app and understand everything that happened inside it. So I'm going to show you what I have known so far. So first of all, you have to understand that whatever is happening right here is actually create React app actually run a webpack on the background. And don't take my word for it. Let's run into create React app and then learn about how does it work. I think this one. Dark mode, please. Does it have anything telling webpack? Yeah, so they are pre-configured and hidden, right? So they're using webpack on the backend. Sorry, not on the backend, on the background to help you doing everything that you supposed to do, but you're not, right? So they want you to focus solely on making sure that your application works. And that's very cool. That's totally fine. I find that, okay, unless you're working and unless you kind of more advanced and you know exactly what you want and you see that the configuration doesn't work for you, doesn't work out for you, then you start from scratch, like from not using Create React app. But quickly, I'm going to show you what's actually happening in the React app. So if you go into Package.json, you're going to see a function called eject. Sorry, not a function, a script called eject. And this is from the documentation. They say that only run this once when you feel like you're ready or when you feel like you reach the limit of the Create React app, because this is what do you say, irreversible. You can only do it once and then it's gonna stuck outside React script. It cannot be redo. It cannot be undo. So because we want to know what happened, let's run it. So npm run eject. Does it confirm? Yeah, see, so it confirmed you. Alright, yes. Oh, it doesn't really want to. What? Remove untracked file, stash, commit, or try again. Okay, I'm gonna commit everything. And I'm gonna turn off the server before we do it. And I'm gonna run a check again. Yes. There you go. And this is, oh wait, I should run the npm install again. And this is what's happening behind the scene. A bunch of things differently being added. Right? A lot of them. And this is what Create React app trying to hide from you. Not trying to hide is a bit too negative. It's trying to okay, I'm gonna stick with trying to hide from you. So they want you to focus more on the coding, right? You don't need to worry about configuration. You don't need to worry about how to bundle it or everything. They do it for you. And so this is their eject. This is their main thing. So a lot of file, a lot of things happening in here. There's a config which do a bunch of things that I have no idea what they are. TSBNB, I think this is TypeScript. For some reason, TypeScript also here. Even though this is JavaScript alone, but I think they kind of make this to have one size fit all. So everything is in here, right? Before we go any further, I just want to know whether it still works. Oh, it also changed your function. So now it becomes node script star. Okay, so that's the script. Oh wow, this is so a lot of things. So I swear that even my personal project when I build from scratch is not even close to this complicated. Wow, this is one size fit all of them. Where's our file? There you go. Right, so we still see that this is working fine. We have all of this still fine, right? So again, this is how they working on the back end. Sorry, on the background. They have all of this. So they still have Babel, which is converting your highly like your latest code into something that can be read by older browser. For some example, it's like if you use const and let, older browser doesn't like it or doesn't understand that because they're old, they only understand var. So Babel trying to convert it back. So a bunch of them is happening behind the scene. They're also doing some they're doing Webpack. So as I said before, this is tool that we've been using, we've been learning to use. So they're also doing this, right? So they're doing Webpack. And one thing that I want to show you real quick is the Webpack dev server. This is the thing that you see been running like this. And you see that there's WDS, that is Webpack dev server. Right, and the Webpack dev server is a very cool feature of Webpack. So Webpack dev server, and you can read it. There are a bunch of them, a bunch of things in here. But what they're doing is they can be used to quickly develop an application. And what they are doing is that, when you do the build, right? When you do build, you're gonna see a bunch of file. Actually, can I do build so you can see what's happening? npm run build. They're gonna have a file like this, right? If you run Webpack dev server, what it's actually doing is that it still bundle it or it compiling it, and then it put them into the memory. And because it put them into the memory, what happening is that it can serve faster, and it doesn't take your storage space. I don't think storage space is something very big, but it can serve faster. And whenever it recompile it, I believe it can do faster if it's in the memory. The bad thing of it is like when you close your server, then everything's gone. Whenever you restart your server, everything in the memory needs to be recompiled again. But I think whenever you do with Webpack server, normal Webpack server has an option to wash your file similar to Nodemon, so they can restart themselves very effectively. And this is one of the coolest tool that you can use in your development, especially in React. Right. So we talk about how does it work, right? So before we go to the proxy, I want to quickly put in the server. And this is not good anymore because we make so many changes to it. So I'm gonna go and use the React recap too. Alright. So this is a file. Bum 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 bum. Alright. Alright, so if I do npm run, I think npm star. npm star. Oh, emu something. npm star. Did I still miss something? I don't see that file. Are we in the same? Are we in the correct folder? Yeah. Huh. That's weird. Oh. You know I'm just gonna drag it out. It's too long. they are going back here. I'm just gonna close this real quick to delete this, and I'll open this again. Alright, so this is the file, and let's run npm star, and oh wait, sorry, npm install first. So before, like I said before, I'm not gonna talk about proxy. Proxy is fine, but I need to jump through Express a bit first. Passport restart server. What file do you express? Huh. Alright, this is gonna take forever. I think so, because in here is a React. Alright, so before we do that, I'm gonna jump right down to database. Right, so this is solely just tips, right? So you can learn, you can use it, you don't have to use it, it's your choice. But in a couple of days, I've been asking with students about, hey, can you help me? This doesn't work. The like the API I sent to update database doesn't work. Like the data return is wrong, like all stuff like that. And my first question whenever I ask them is that, have you checked the database yet? And some of them come back and say, no, I haven't. Some of them come back and say, hey, how do I check the database? And to check the database, you would use a GUI, a graphic user interface. You can also use a command line to connect them. It's fine. I don't really like it because you need to do so many things just to check. And normally a GUI give you so many different tools to do a lot of things. So for example, if you use MySQL, there is the MySQL workbench. If you use Mongo, there's a RoboTreaty, and every other database have different things to use, right? So why do I always ask them to do that? Because you have to understand this, that the database is where your data got saved, right? So if you call something to update or to insert or to delete something into the database, there may work, they might not work. And after that, you send another API or something to retrieve the information. So now there are two things that you put in the equation. There is the API that you put in to modify database, and there's the API you put in to look at the result. So now if something went wrong, if something go wrong, you're gonna come back and asking which one doesn't work. Whether it's the API that you send in to update your data, or is that the API that you send in to retrieve your data, right? And there will be cases when you say, oh wait, I did that, I update that, it doesn't work. Sometimes it's just because when you update it, it's still working, but then the API for you to retrieve it is not, right? So having two things in the equation is harder to debug, like by a lot. So what I would recommend is just having something to look at, like having a UI to look at. So whenever you send an API to update your data, look at database, make sure that your data change, right? Or make sure that your data update or delete or whatever it is, right? Make sure that your data change. And after that, you can come back and say, okay, my data has been updated or my data hasn't been updated. That's where you know where the error is. And you can compare that with the second API which retrieve your data, right? So having a GUI would help you solve the problem of whether I'm doing it wrong in update or am I doing it wrong in retrieval. And that is the big thing. That will save you time, because the core of debugging is that limiting down where the problem lies, and then you solve that, and that alone, right? And like, don't use a GUI just making it harder and harder to actually doing that. I actually see a lot of my colleagues actually query the wrong thing, and they keep, like, say for example they do like query all the ID under 10, right? And they run another query to add another maybe user, and the user ID become like 20 or something, and they keep running the same query to retrieve, and they say, no, my add query doesn't work, my add query doesn't work. It's not the add query doesn't work, it's because you're running the wrong query to retrieve, right? So having a GUI to double check whether your update data query is working is gonna save you time. Okay, so again, this is just some tips and tricks that I think might make sense to you. All right, is it done? What's happening to this? Okay, I have no idea what's that, but hopefully it's working now. All right, there you go. Is it connecting something? Nope. Okay, cool. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. All right. So let's talk about proxy. What do I mean by proxy? You have a server, correct? Your server have an API, because we all know that they have an API. So I'm gonna write an API real quick and real stupid like this. This has request and rest. I don't use request, so I'm gonna replace it with underscore, and rest will send back hello. Cool. Good. So now, how can I get this hello? Because this is the Express server, and we all see that Express server now running 3001. What we need to do is not 3000. We need to go to 3001. Why am I in here? Okay, I closed the wrong one. Bye. What you need to do is you need to go to 3001. Sorry about that. And go to the route, which is /API/random. There you have your hello. All right, see that? Hello. I'm gonna go over. That's the hello. Okay. If you do 3000, what's gonna happen? Nothing happened, because this is a React server, or to be precise, this is a Webpack dev server, right? This is the port provided by Webpack dev server. So this is not the Express server. So this is the Express server. That's how it returned that. All right. So now, for some reason, I want to request this API from the front end, because we all need to do that. Does it do Axios? No, it doesn't. So let's install Axios. So go to client and install Axios. Alright, and while we're waiting for it, I'm gonna go to app, because I don't like how they're doing this. I'm gonna change it to function component, because you don't use class component forever and ever. Oh, just quick thing about that. Functional component and class component are still being supported by React, but functional component is later, and React is slowly pushing people toward it, and they will support functional better. Like all the use hook and everything that is built only for functional. And if you start your own React project, please make sure to use the functional component. All right. All right. Oh, done. Wow. All right. So in here, I'm going to call use effect. With component, thank you. And I don't need it to run on anything else. Right, so Axios. I think that's how it works. I forget how to use this. I think. Sorry. And we do API says hello. Right, this is the route that we say in here. Sorry, API slash random. And we console log the response. Now let's have a look at this. Warning, an if function must return anything that return a promise. Doesn't like it. Alright, Axios.get Axios. But so I'm gonna use this way. Alright, cool. So this is the thing that I want to show. So first thing that I want to notice first is that this is not the thing you sent, right? This is nothing look like the thing you sent, because this is the response got configured by Axios, right? So Axios configured this kind of object. The response that you actually send only lie in this data. Everything else come from Axios. And the reason why they're giving you all of this is that because sometimes of the time you would want to access this. Like if you want to know what code it is, some of the status code may be like 304 or something. Like they might change, and you can read into this to better understand the like what the request look like, right? So the data is right here, hello, right? So right now you can do response.data. Cool. But the issue I'm trying to solve here is not this. The issue I'm not the issue. The thing I want to show you here is not this. It's like Axios, you already know that. The problem is, how does it work? Like, how the hell does it work? We talked with each other before about different port, right? We talk about, hey, this is 3000, and 3000 is Webpack Dev Server, and 3001 is the Express. And we know that we set the route into 3001. So why does we do this on 3000? You can easily see that this is 3000, right? how does it work? If I click on this to open it, we can see that if we load this directly, it's gonna give us this page, right? Mystery. Yeah. All right. So this is the time I show you something called proxy. So proxy is it's not something new. I learned this new thing in, I think, last couple of months or something, but it's not a new thing. A proxy, I think by definition of it is, actually I'm not gonna try to explain it. So what does proxy? Proxy in internet. A proxy server acts as a gateway between you and the internet, right? Alright, so many different things. But sorry. I haven't searched for what is a proxy. So what happening is that a proxy in this way in Webpack Dev Server, I'm gonna show you Webpack Dev Server proxy. 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 Proxy some URL can be useful when you have a separate API backend server and you want to request on the same domain. So basically what's happening is whenever you request to this API, sorry, to this route, or that's what you did in here, it's gonna send a request to localhost 3000/random /API/random. And then this goes through Webpack Dev Server. And Webpack Dev Server see that, hey, this is the route. I have a proxy. So everything goes through port 3000, go through me, gonna become port 3001. And I don't know if it's showing here though. Yeah, no, it doesn't show in here. So everything goes through this, go to port 3001. And that's the reason why this gives us the exact information of what this is giving us. And I can show you quickly that in the case it doesn't work. So if I go into client, then I run it. So this is client running alone without the Express server. Nope. I didn't have anything running on it. This is the I think because when I kill it, it's still working. Alright. The problem, I think the problem before is because it run concurrency. Concurrently meaning you run two of them at the same time. I don't personally do it because it's too confusing. And it also like combining the log, so it's really hard to read anything. So normally I create two scripts to run on the back end and the front end differently. Alright, but back to this. We can now see that there's a proxy error from this API. It cannot go from the other to the other. So this is the proof that the proxy is working, because it's trying to go to this API, go to this URL whenever you're requesting data from this URL. And the reason why it's showing up is because we don't have the server, the Express server running. So that's why this giving us nothing. That's why it couldn't connect it, and then it's yelling at. Right. So that's how the proxy works. And the way React create React app asking you to set up a proxy is that you go into, I think, the Package.json app React, and you look at and you update this thing. Right, so this is how they set up the proxy. Right, so right, so that's how the proxy works. Now what next? So let's talk about Express. I don't want to talk about Passport. I'm gonna talk quickly about Passport. I don't want to implement Passport. It takes so much time. But let's talk about what file does your server serve? All right. So blah 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 blah. All right. So what do I mean by what file does your server serve? Let's go back to here. Actually, before we get to here, let's talk about the differences between running locally and running on Heroku or running on production. Okay, so the main thing that we need to understand is that when you're running on development, you're running two servers. Okay, there's a backend server which running on Express that serve at your API, and that's a front-end server which using Webpack Dev Server to serve the React. All right, so that's two server. And when, like we already see in this case, is that one is 3000, the other is 3001, right? We can easily see that. When you deploying it, however, you're running one server and one server alone, and that server is the Express server. So you don't use Webpack Dev Server. See the word dev in there, only development. You don't run Webpack Dev Server to help you with to serve the React anymore. You use Express to help you serve it. So that in this case, let's try it. So from now on onward, I'm not gonna use Express server. I'm not gonna use Webpack Dev Server at all. I'm gonna use Express server and see how I can make it work. All right, so in order to set up that, I need to see that there is a Nodemon here. So I need to activate the, I need to make okay, so you see that it doing something differently on production. So this is only used for production, right? So I need to kick up the to make sure that it run on production. So in order to do that, I go to Package.json, and so this is the one that is running on production. So I'm gonna do this. So this is not sure whether this works. Okay, turn off that. So this is inline a process.env. So if I do console.log process.env.node, I try this in Mac, it does work. I need to see whether this works in here. So if I do *prop, run *prop, you can see that this is production. If I change this into development, you can see that now this is development. So this is inline process.env. Right, whatever you want to put in there. All right, so now we're gonna go and try production. So remember that this experience is solely to show you how an a MERN-stack app or just a React app would work on a deployment platform or Heroku. Right, so again we run, and now we go and have a look at our file. I'm gonna close this. Alright, remember we don't use 3000 anymore, we only use 3001. And we see that there's nothing happening. Probably because we haven't built yet. Yeah, we need to build. Alright, client npm run build, because it serves everything in the build folder. So there need to be this folder in order to build that. Alright, cool. So the build's done. So it's gonna serve everything in here, right? Alright, so let's refresh it, and there we go. Workbox. Interesting. I need to see what workbox is. If you slash API slash hello. Oh wait, sorry, random. You still see this, right? I think I did something wrong. Not modify. I think I did something wrong. Should end by that. How does it return this at all? You need to, okay. 3001, and let's return that. Huh. Two similar things that return two different things. Okay. Get API. I'm gonna test something out real quick. This is being cached, I think. Serve from service worker. Yeah, there you go. Okay. So create a React app again. It does a lot of things for you, which is the reason why I. Can I stop it? There you go. Okay. So now it works. Okay. Alright. So this is the API, and this is the page, and it register again. There you go. Alright. I really want to unregister this, but not really the thing that I want to show. Alright. So what do I want to show here? The thing that I want to show here is that there's a case where one of the students come and ask me that, hey, there's some problem with my manifest. And the manifest is something, I forget which file, some file. I'm gonna assuming this file, right? This is not the manifest, but assuming this file. And it says something wrong. And the reason for it is because this doesn't work. She doesn't have this one, right? So if you refresh the page now, your service worker, now, where does it serve from? Wait, how does that work again? Alright, unregister network. How does this work? Location. Service worker is fetching. Wait, did I forget something? No. Oh wait, sorry, this doesn't reset itself. Okay, because we're using Node, not Nodemon. Alright, let's try again. Okay, I cannot turn it off though. Alright, there you go. Something like this. Right? And we both see that this is looking fine, right? Because the code is fine. The status is fine. But the problem is that if you click on it, you can see that this is wrong response. Right? And the wrong response come from to everything. And if you look closely, you can see that this file is basically the Javascript file or the main file, the index file. And the whole reason is just because you don't use the static on this. So remember something closely, that it's also a difference between when you run it locally and when you're running on Heroku. When you're running locally, because you're serving it from two different server, so Express server only serve as an API server. It doesn't serve any file whatsoever. So the routing that you have for the file might not be correct, right? And it's still gonna work because you are using Webpack Dev Server routing to give you what file you need. So Express server locally only run as an API. However, when you deploy it, you are depending on the the Express server to serve you the correct file. And you already see the case that if you don't have the other one, this one is serving the wrong file, immediately the wrong file, because you are using Express server to serve the file. So you need to make sure that whenever whenever you see an error that something stupid like this happen, click on it, see exactly what file is serving. It might not be simple as just this line, this specific line. It might be more complicated, so you need to understand exactly what Express server is serving you. Sometimes you ask for file A, but you do something randomly in your routing which return a file B. It still happens. It does happen. So the file you request and the file the server serve you might not even match. So you need to make sure that you need to go and look at the DevTool and to see each of the files that having problem, see what the response of it, see what file does the server return you, right? And that's the easy way to debug the problem, like especially this kind of problem. So if I run it again, it should work as normal. Right, there you go. Alright. I'm gonna do in depth because in production you more or less you never reload your server. Alright, so I've been helping some of the students throughout a couple of days, and a lot of the time whenever I change the server file, I save it, Nodemon kick in, restart the server, and then I have to log in again, right? So it's normal, right? Because how does Passport work? Passport work based on something we call a session, and the session by default is saving in memory. And again, don't take my word for it. That's how they say it. Passport npm. Actually, I want to go with GitHub. They explain it better in GitHub. Okay, not that better. Passport npm. I think I saw it on GitHub. Did I get it wrong? Yes, I tell you the wrong keyword, but yes, Passport. So Passport running on something called session or Express session, right? And if you look for Express session, actually in this one, if you look for Express session, I think there you go. Yeah, so it uses Express session, right? And if you're looking for Express session, you're gonna see that there is a bunch of them, but you're gonna see something called memory. Here, warning: the default server size session storage is memory store. It's purposely not designed for production environment. It will leak memory. Okay, cool. So, what does it basically mean is that it saves the data or the session inside the memory. And as we all know, having it in memory will be faster to respond. However, it's not safe whenever you refresh. So it's good when you do development, not so good when you do production. So in order to save that, in order to migrate from it, there's a list of compatible session store that you can use. There's a bunch of them. Personally, for my personal project, because I use SQLize, there is a connect SQLize or something. Here, there's a connect session SQLize, right? Oh, I think I use SQL Store Connect. And for anyone here using Mongo, I think there's a Mongo Connect Mongo, something like this, right? So and there's more, and there's a file thingy, the session file store, right? So the idea of that is they migrate away from saving the data into a session. They go into saving the data into database, or saving the data into a file, or saving the data into wherever you want to save it. Normally in production, we're gonna go with save data into a database, because that means that whenever you deploy a new version of the application, the session of the user is still there, so they can never be locked out between your updates. Right, so this is one cool way of doing this. Sorry, not a cool way. I would say this is essential if you actually deploy your application to public. Or I would say this would save you a lot of annoying time, because when you develop it, because you don't have to keep relogging whenever you refresh your server, which is a lot of time. All right, so that is passport, right? Last thing with the passport I want to show you, actually I'm telling you this one already. All right, last thing is about compression. So in order to show you exactly compression, I need to show you a big project for you to easily see the impact of it. So in order to do that, I'm gonna show you my personal project, right? And this is my personal project. Ignore everything that you don't understand. I don't want you to pay any attention to that. Just pay attention to the size of the file. All right, that's the one. Wait, wrong one. That's the one. All right. Before I do that, I need to make sure that there's no credential whatsoever got deployed. All right. Blah, 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 blah. All right. So this is my webpack.config. Again, this is something that Create React app hides from you. So you will not, until you will be ready, you're never gonna see the webpack.config file. But I want to show you this to give you an idea of what can a webpack done, and how can you use what you have learned into like bundling reacting, right? So first of all, what does webpack actually does? What does webpack actually do? Webpack is a bundling tool. And what does bundling mean? Bundling means you compile everything, and I mean everything, combine everything into one file. And I'm gonna reopen the old one so that you can really feel that. So remember the old one, we run an npm build to build this one. Remember that? So if I open it, the only file you see is, I think, this one. So there's the main and there's a chunk. Right, so they already split in the map, but this is the main file. Right, and what does the main file mean? That is, I think that's our logo, something. Yeah. So bundling is combining everything into one file. Cool. So that's the that's the meaning of bundling. However, bundling has a problem. Imagine that you have a website with many pages, right? So you don't want the user just go into the home page. They cannot even go to a dashboard or even see the about us, and they have to load the JavaScript for them, right? It doesn't make sense. So bundling will force the user to download everything, because it bundle into one file, right? And force the user to download all of them before they can even use the system, right? So bundling is good. just not that good. So let's quickly jump back to this and have a look at many ways to do this. First of all is to split them. I'm going to show you the code for that. So again, this is something I learned for myself. You just need to know that there is a way to do that. You don't need to employ it to use it. So React has something called React Lazy, and their way of let's go. So this is their way of splitting the big chunk of file into many smaller files. Because imagine that like the same scenario, right? You go into homepage, you can say that, okay, when I'm on homepage, only load anything that I need on homepage. When I go to dashboard, load everything required for dashboard. When I go to about us, load everything required for about us. I don't want to just go into home and I have to load for everything, right? So that's what React called route splitting. So you only ask the user to download what is required in order to finish the work in that route. And again, the more route you have, the more smaller chunk you can have, and the smaller file it can be. Cool? All right. So that's talking about how you can update the Webpack. In this one, you can already see that they're updating. So they have multiple file. So you can update it to render to go out with multiple files to lower the size of the file. So how much lower do you can lower, you ask, right? So whenever you deal with bundling, you will never see this, but I'm going to show you Webpack bundling, how much size it is. Sorry, how big the file is. So this is my function, sorry, my file, my project, and you can see how many files in here. There's a lot of them in all of this, so you cannot see all of them. So in this one, where do I do ultimate? So I will, this is my bundle. Okay, this is my compression, so I'm gonna turn this off. And I'm gonna run a build, npm run build. And you're gonna see, I just want you to see how big the file can get. Just get the sense of it. And I have no idea how long this is gonna take. Honestly, I have no idea. Alright, so this is done. So currently I have 16, seems like so, 16 of the route. Right, and there's some number that got display that missing. I have no idea where it is, but I got 16 of them. And the smallest one is roughly around 1.39, and the largest one is roughly 1.44 megabytes. Right, so this is after I do a route splitting. The original, if I tell you this, you might not believe that the original file is more than, I think, 10 or 12 megabytes. Believe that? 10 or 12 megabyte JavaScript code need to be loaded on your browser before you can even use the app. And I would say I have a good internet, and my download speed is roughly, I would say, 80 megabytes per second, and it took me more than 11 seconds before I can start my app. That's how big the file is, right? 12 megabytes. Now the smaller file, saying if I go to this route, I only need to go to 1.44 megabytes, which is supposedly smaller. So from 12 to 1.44, I would say 10 times. So instead of doing 11 seconds, now you only have to wait 1.1 second. There is a thing called vendor file. This is the feature of Webpack to split all the library that you're using into a file. So you're using React, right? React is a thing that you're using in every route or in every function. So they split them into one file, so that in each of the file now you don't have to include React again, because if not, then each of the file you have to also include React in order for the file to work. So every common thing they put and they give it out to the vendor file, which is now 5.3 megabyte. Cool, makes sense, right? What I will show you is there is a bundle analyzer that I install. What it's gonna do is it's gonna analyze the file, the package, and what's in the bundle, and I'm gonna show you. Does it working? There you go. All right. So this is everything that I have inside each of my bundle. I use design, so you see that every page of me using design. So you can see that icon is here in the vendor app. I use moment everywhere, so the moment is here. The React DOM, this is required for all the React, and there's a bunch of smaller thing in here, right? And in each of them, this is my editor page. So this is the only page that I use Quill. This is an editor, so that's why it's here. And everywhere else is only include what is required, not everything, right? Cool, right? So you say cool. You did a bunch of things. You did splitting. You do wrap splitting. You make the bundle file smaller, but this is still 1.1 megabyte. And if you have a look at the console, you're gonna see that this yellow line in here, and this saying that the following access exceed the recommended size limit of 244 kilobytes. What this is saying is that Webpack assuming that the biggest size of each of your bundle should be less than 244. So when I first encountered this line, what I did is very simple. I was like, does it affect me? Nope. Okay, ignore that. Right? Ignore that. And then after a while, it become larger and larger, and it actually slowed me down. So that's the moment I start thinking like, how small is 244? And so that's when I start doing the splitting. And you can see that even one picture is already 87 kilobytes. So 3 pictures is already more than that. So how can you even reach the 244? That is too low, right? And if you can reach that, what is in each of the file? Even the library alone is a bit more than that. So that's why I come up with the last one. I didn't come up with it. I found the last one, which is called compression, right? And this is cool because I don't even remember this until it worked. So you remember that we learned about compression. We learned about whenever you serve a file, a static file, you compress it on the server so that when it comes to the browser, it becomes smaller, right? So it's a smaller file gets sent, and then the browser doesn't need to decompress itself. The browser understands the compressed file, right? So you send a smaller file, and the server understands a smaller file. Cool. That's where the compression plugin coming in. So this is a bunch of different things, but the compression plugin, what I use is I use a broadly compress. I copy all of this, but a broadly is something that built by Google. I think it's built by Google, right? Unless they support by Google, I believe it's built by Google. But I will not go too deep into this because I honestly don't understand a lot of things because of compression. The only thing I know about compression is that it makes it become smaller, right? So then I go and I look at what can support broadly, and if you can I use this is the website that allow you to put in a technique or on anything you want to do. So like if I do map, this is array.map. This is map element. This is map element. Can I do array map or something? Does it? array the map. Yeah, so ECMA 5, stuff like that. So it gives you an idea of what support, what doesn't support, if it's support, and what happening, like stuff like that. So I have a look at broadly and see what does supporting it. And I can easily see that they have been supporting it for a while. So this is supporting since 2017. This is 16. This is 16. This is 17. Like a lot of big browser already supporting this. And I would say for myself, my application, I don't support anything that more than 3 years old. That is my goal. So if you're using anything that later older than 3 years old, it's your choice. You need to update it. If not, it's not going to work correctly. So because of that, I choose to use Spotlight. I'm going to show you the result after using the compression. And roughly remember the number that you have a look in here. Right, just remember this. Roughly remember. So I'm gonna turn on my compression and I'm gonna try to build again. And let's see how that works. Right, so everything the same, but I use compression. Alright, this is actually taking a while. So when we're doing that, I want to ensure you something like this. So when you serve a compression file, the system serve the file and then serve the compression file, and then the browser get the compression file and then understand it and then parse it, right? So it doesn't decompress the file. So it's not about time that we're talking about here, right? So the time is the same. It get the file, it use the file. It doesn't get the file, then decompress the file. So the time that we are wasting is the time that we use to build the compress, which is like original time only. So have a look at this right now. This is 26. Even our vendor app, previously, you remember this is more than 5 megabytes, now become 988, nearly 20% less than that. So this is the power of compression. All right, and again, you will not see this easily if you are working with small project or if you're not using any external library. I know a lot of you using external graphic library like Material UI or Bootstrap or React Bootstrap, a bunch of things like that. You should easily see the size of your bundle become increasing really fast if you're using them. It's just because you are, in order for one component to work, they need to include another component and another component to include another component, and that thing keep go on and on and on. And because you bundling, you need to include all of them, so all of them will be in one file and it become bigger and bigger and bigger. So at some point, again, remember this clearly. At some point, if you're building something that you meant for public or like for real world to use, you need to think about how the people with bad internet will access it, right? We learn about it. We learn about optimization, and it's actually a real thing. Even when you're dealing with React, when you're dealing with Webpack, right? They're the same thing. You make the file smaller, right? You compress it. You make sure that the file is being the smallest size. You minify it, you uglify it, you do a bunch of things to make sure that the file is become smallest before you serve it to the user. And that's how you use something that we teach you in the past into something that we have today. All right. You're not gonna do this in your project because your project is too small for the scope of this. But remember this. This is something that Webpack can do. This is something you should do, and I would say you must do if you build something that meant to be used by others. Okay. So I guess that is the last thing I want to cover. And is that